Alrighty. I was going to text this out, but I think a video is going to be a lot easier to explain my process for the herringbone pattern. First off, tip number one is 2 to 1. So no matter what you're using, make sure the ratio is 2 to 1. So these are 1.5 by 3/4 of an inch. They have to be precise. There's no room for error, or you'll be trying to correct something that can't really be corrected. Number 2, the starting point. After you decide which orientation you're going to work from, you work from left to right. And you should have a substrate unless you're doing, a big chunky block type of pattern. So a lot of the same principles for tile setting apply here. However, in my process, you eliminate the need for spacers or anything like that, like grout line related type stuff. There's no grout here. So the first thing, it starts in long strips. So, this would be 2 feet long or 18 inches long. And I just have cut them on the bandsaw real thin and then rip them on the table saw to 3/4. Once I got my strips, I sand them right to 220, and then I use a round over bit and I give it a little profile. But I do not profile the whole edge. I leave the bottom still at its 3/4 width. So the top is rounded. You could do this by hand too with sandpaper, but you have to keep whatever you're gluing down the bottom, you need to keep that 3/4 of an inch. And then that will give you that spacing consistency throughout it without having to guess at it. Now to start it, just grab a triangle square, and your very first one is it's the most important one. Start it in the left corner and have it go tip to tip, like from corner to corner, tip to tip, and then 45 it and just feather it into that spot. Let's just say that's good enough for this video. Glue that baby down. Wait till it's nice and dry and bonded well. It's not going to go anywhere, and that is your anchor. Do not have it stick out. Have it precisely on the edges, so it's flush coming up on both sides. From there, you can start laying out your pattern. So you'll work left to right and do 2 rows. So this being row 1 here, and this being row 2. So you would push that in, and these aren't going to line up, but this is just for fun. Then work your pattern down the whole way. Like so. And what you're looking for is as you go across your line, you don't want to have to force this edge to be flush in any way. It should just automatically line up, and this tip should always be flush with this bottom edge. If you're getting that the whole way around, then you've cut your pieces to the right length and width. And for me, with these areas where you technically would be cutting, it's just easier to put, like, just glue just this portion of it, stick it on there, whether you have to use a tiny clamp and have it held in there or whatever. After you've done that, so you've got all your pieces laid in, you got the whole thing done, you're going to have all these pieces that are sort of hanging out everywhere. So that you'd have, you know, piece, 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 and so on. Once it's glued, and you know it's not going to go anywhere, you can use a handsaw, a bandsaw, whatever. Just cut it close, like within a 1/16 of the substrate here. Then take it to your router. Use a router table preferably, and just with a bearing flush trim it. So then what you have now is your pattern is exactly the same size as whatever your top is. So if it's a box top or a tabletop, it doesn't matter. And the same theory applies no matter what size you use, but just make sure it's 2 to 1. And if you start, I would do this, you know, in pieces, and just take your time. Make sure that as you're going, that there is no error in how it's laid out. Like if it starts going off like that, I'm really exaggerating it, but I'm talking like a 32nd of an inch. By the time you're 2-3 feet up on your tabletop or whatever, that kind of error is not fixable, especially if you've glued it down. It would just be start over again. So take your time, and that's kind of what you'll get. I hope this helps. If you have any other questions, just let me know. Thank you.